It's the 41st millennium, and the abominable intelligence of the Tau Empire has genocided 75 billion imperial souls in the fire of nuclear annihilation. The survivors of the nuclear waste created resistance against the Xenos horde. But help came from an unlikely source. A man more machine than human came to lay waste to the Xenos and the abominable empire. Step 1, we're going to base the entire mini in Rhinox hide. This is going to leave a really nice undertone when we paint the Abaddon black on top later. Step 2, we're going to use Iron Warriors to paint all the little metal bits. We're going to paint the trim along the shoulders as well as those little vent things along the back and the power fist. Step 3, we're going to use Dawnstone Gray to paint the Crux Terminatus. For the face, we're going to use Flayed 1 Flesh. I also really like Keesaw Flesh, and I think it would look really nice. We don't want the face to go too thick with the paint, so we want to water down the paint just slightly so it'll go on nice and smooth and not chunky. Now to really look like the Terminator, I added some Iron Warriors and I added from the top of the forehead in like a triangle and down in the eye so that this was kind of like that metal part of the skeleton's face. Once we're all done basing the mini, we're gonna go use some Agrat's Earthshade and we're just gonna put this over the parts of the mini that we did not paint in Rhinox hide or on the face. And if you do get some on the Rhinox hide, it really doesn't matter. We're going to wash the face in Seraphim Sepia. We don't want it to go too thick on the face, so you're going to use a dry brush and soak up some of those areas that got too heavy. Now it's time to paint the armor. We're going to use Abaddon Black. We're going to first dry brush it on a paper towel using a larger brush because it's going to be easier to blend with. And we're just going to tap it on. Just tap, 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 or stipple it. We want to stay away from those bottom edges as well as those little kind of creased in indentation areas on the armor. This way it's going to let some of that Rhinox hide seep through. On larger parts of the armor, like the shoulder or the knee, we want to focus the Abaddon Black towards the top of the knee or the top of the shoulder, and we want it to be less towards the bottom. So just heavier with the Abaddon Black, and then just stipple it lightly until you're not stippling anymore. we need highlights. And to do this, we're gonna use Eshin Gray. This is gonna create like a sun damage look. We're gonna still use a larger brush and we're gonna dry brush it first using a paper towel until there is barely any paint on the brush. We're gonna wanna focus on those top areas of the armor, like the top of the shoulder or just top ridges of certain armor, or even on the back of the leg, and you're just gonna kind of do in that little middle area. You don't wanna do too much, and if you do, just go back with Abaddon Black and stipple in a little bit of that in to kind of get rid of it. You can use a larger brush to hit some of those larger edges, but if it's just too small of an area, you're going to want to switch over to a smaller brush to hit some of those edges. I just use the end of my brush. We're gonna use Dawnstone Gray for the brightest of highlights. We're gonna really wanna focus on those top edges, just kind of using your side of the brush, as well as little light scratches throughout. To make the scratches, I like to water it down just slightly until it's like an ink-like substance, and that will make it easier to make your little scratches. For highlights on the metal areas, we're gonna use Stormhose Silver or just any bright silver. And we're just gonna wanna do highlights on those little back vent things, as well as the rims of the shoulder. I just like to focus on the edges and the bolts. If you want to make your mini look even better, we're gonna use that same silver and we're gonna wanna focus on some of the very bottom edges. I just like to almost stipple it into the edge. So that way it doesn't look like a sharp line, but almost like little chips along. And then we're gonna wanna do scratches from those bottom edges and up. For the face, we're gonna go back to the previous color that we used. The Flayed One Flesh was a little too bright for the highlights, so instead I mixed it just slightly with some Seraphim Sepia instead of using water. And we're just gonna wanna focus on some of those areas on the face, like the cheekbones, the nose, the little kind of forehead area, as well as the jawline and chin. What are you still doing here? If you're here this long, go subscribe or watch my next video. And stay tuned for the next poll to pick the next mini I'm going to paint. And I'll be back.